What's going on, everybody? Patrick Auger at the Body Lock here with Mr. Drake Riggs and Matthew Wells. And we're here to talk about a rematch that may happen one day between Max Holloway, who just came off an amazing performance against Calvin Kattar, probably already the performance of the year for 2021, versus the headliner of UFC 257, the man that's buying watches galore and got media following him everywhere, Conor McGregor. So, boys, we know that these guys fought back at featherweight way back in the day. In fact, in McGregor's run up to the featherweight title, Holloway was, I believe, the only person McGregor didn't finish in order to get the belt. So now that we've seen these two guys evolve, if they were to rematch at this point, how do we think this would go?
Differently. I think it would go very differently. It's this potential rematch, I think, for Conor intrigues me maybe more than any of them. I think that it is incredibly fascinating. And for a while, I was under the impression, and I think I probably still am under the impression, that Max would win the rematch. And I felt that way a little bit since maybe his second title defense, or, somewhere in the midpoint of his title reign there, because he was improving to this point where, he looked incredible then. And then we see what he did just recently to somebody like Calvin Kattar, who, of course, I don't believe and didn't believe he was on that level just yet. We would have found out in this fight, and we saw that he wasn't, although that was definitely just otherworldly. And I think one of those nights where is that even replicatable? If he can look that good again, like, that's really saying something. But it could have just been one of those nights where, like, all right, this man just entered the Matrix for an evening and styled on somebody and made him look way worse than he actually is. Either way, don't think Calvin was quite up to that par, but still, that performance was absolutely insane. It shows that Max Holloway, even if he can't, put on a show as good as that one again, which is going to be very hard to do, he's still improving and only 29 years old, right? Like, it's very scary to think about. He might not even be his best self yet, and his current self is still good enough to beat damn near anybody. And I think he probably beats anybody that's not a champion right now. Like, it's incredible how good he looked. And Conor, lately, the inactivity, and there's still so many question marks about him. What we know, like, this fight with Poirier is going to tell us a whole lot about him. But stylistically, I feel like Max has become, it's going to be a nightmare for Conor. Because you look at that first fight, of course, very long ago now, so much has changed. But if you want to look at that one, Conor beat him primarily with his wrestling, which is very odd to think about. That was like Conor's most grappling heavy attack in that fight. Of course, he did outstrike him a bit and everything, but I remember him taking him down and everything. And of course, Holloway's takedown defense has gotten a lot better since then. He's just improved so much, grown up. Literally, he was like 20, might have been 22-ish, around that time and everything. And his chin also is, I don't think we give it enough love. Of course, it was kind of pointed out on this night, but the guy has never been knocked down. And he's taken a whole lot of shots in his career. And you look at the Poirier fight, the rematch, specifically the Poirier rematch with Holloway, like, damn, he took a lot of punishment, kept on ticking. And then Kattar, who is a very hard striker himself, was able to land, some good shots every now and then. But Holloway, unfazed, it's kind of scary, man. Like, this guy, does he feel pain at all? It's incredible how much damage he can absorb. Of course, Conor has proven to be a guy who has a unique level of power and precision as well with his striking. So maybe he could be the guy to do it. If anybody's gonna, it'd probably be him. But I would trust Max's chin to, hold up for at least a couple punches rather than just taking one and being out, right? I think it's safe to say, from what we've seen in his career, he has got the iron of all iron chins, especially in these lower weight classes. So I favor him right now, man. I feel like it's hard not to, considering just what we've seen from these guys and their developments since then. Like, you look at these rematches, like the Poirier one too, these guys have all, I think, evolved more than Conor has since their first fights.
I mean, very good points in that. Hard to argue with a lot of it. Max was 21, 22 when he first fought McGregor. He's grown up a lot since then. He's obviously continued to get better and better, even from the Volkanovski first loss to what he was able to do just in between Volkanovski 1 and 2 in those fights. And then seeing what he did against Kattar, I mean, it is, Matt, are you thinking that Drake's probably spot on here, or do you have a different opinion?
I like Drake's points, but I do have a little bit different of an opinion when I think of how a rematch between these two could play out. We've seen Conor face, larger opponents, right? And he's been able to make those adjustments. And we saw recently when Max tried to do that, it didn't go so well for him when he tried to move up to 155. We've seen Conor compete in 3 different divisions, although he hasn't competed against a true quote unquote welterweight, right? He's faced guys that float between 155 and 170, but still showing up at 170 and competing at that weight is different. Your body is different. The camp is different. Everything about stepping into the cage at a different weight class is different on that night. So I think Conor has proven that, when it comes to using his range and his size and his power, even, it's just better than Max right now. Max could not get Calvin Kattar out of there. No matter what he did in that fight, he could not get him out of there. He hit him with some hard elbows. And I know a lot of those punches weren't full power, but he put a lot of juice on some of those, and Kattar just ate them. And that's a credit to Kattar's chin as well. But if I'm thinking of, if Conor was throwing those shots, would Kattar still be standing? I don't know. I don't think so. And of course Conor's not cutting down to 145 anytime soon. But if everything else was the same, I think Conor would have been able to get him out of there. And I think that would be the difference in the rematch. Yes, Max is so much better in all aspects of the game. Speed, his counter game, his boxing, even the beautiful spin kicks he was throwing in that fight against Calvin were on point. Like they did not miss. Like every time he landed one of those, I was like, God dang, that was beautiful. And he's just all around a better fighter than when they first fought. But Conor's also gotten a lot better too. And he's fought, he's done some crazy things, taking on Floyd Mayweather. I mean, just unimaginable sort of things. Again, competing at 170 against bigger guys. I think Conor's power, if they were to rematch, would be the difference maker. And one other thing of note, when you look at Max's recent, dominant victories, right? The ones that we all love to talk about, like in the Calvin Kattar fight, the Brian Ortega fight, those were guys that did not throw kicks. Conor will bring kicks to the octagon and he will use them. And Conor is also the type of guy that wants to lead the dance as well. He wants to take control of the octagon and make sure the fight goes where he allows it to go. And that's what Max was doing to those opponents that I just mentioned as well. He was the one putting them in a box and making sure that they could move wherever they wanted to freely. He was the one cutting off the cage and, keeping guys in a certain area wherever he wanted them to be. Max kept them there. That's what Conor is really good at too. So that's also part of the chess match is, can Conor keep Max where he wants him and vice versa? Right now, I think Conor is still better at that. But, at the end of the day, I do want to see the rematch, although I still think Conor wins it.
Yeah, those are also very solid points. And I would say I've got to favor Conor in a rematch as well. I think when you look at Holloway moving up and fighting Poirier, that's the first time we've really seen Holloway get rocked, right? He got wobbled a couple of times in those fights. He stayed up, but he clearly got hurt or his legs were not there at certain points. I mean, he got hurt more than he's probably ever gotten hurt in a fight, fighting the bigger Poirier. And when it comes to the boxing, as you mentioned, Holloway's ability to put guys in those boxes and really just, do what he wants at will with them. Most of those opponents, again, don't throw kicks. And even against Poirier, I would argue Poirier outboxed Holloway there. I would argue that he had cleaner striking in a lot of ways. He outboxed Poirier. And I think McGregor, and I know this might get me roasted, but I think McGregor might have better boxing than both of them. I don't know that for sure. It's hard to say because we haven't really seen him, fight since 2018. And then against Cerrone, that was so quick. Can't really say where he was at that point. But I mean, in 2018, he fought Nurmagomedov and he lost against a wrestler, right? He did win a round against Khabib, but it was much more about avoiding the takedown, stuffing the takedown. He was off his game there. 2016, he put on just a ridiculous performance against Eddie Alvarez. Just outboxed him on the feet. Alvarez, for whatever reason, didn't really go for takedowns until late and tried to box Conor, and Conor just, toyed with him. And this matchup on Saturday between McGregor and Poirier is really going to show where McGregor is at, because Dustin's going to go in there and be Dustin, be that technical boxer that just pieces you up and finds those angles and is a volume striker, much like Max would be, right? Poirier doesn't tend to one-punch people out of there. He has to rock him a little bit and then hit him with volume. Holloway's the same way. With the Kattar fight, you could argue at points that could have been stopped, right? There was some controversy there. I saw some people talking about, but, that's how he's always finished people. He's always been able to rock them and then continually follow up with a massive flurry until the ref calls it off. That's the same type of thing Poirier tends to do in his finishes. So if McGregor goes in there and just lands that big power punch or just straight up outboxes Poirier until he gets a finish, that shows a lot about where McGregor is at. And I think that in the rematch, that would favor him heavily. If Poirier goes in there and pieces up Conor, his chin can hold up at 155, and it's much closer, and maybe one big shot lands for Conor, and that's it. I would lean more towards Max then, just because even though he's gotten hurt, he's still managed to stay there. I think he would need to, if it's going to be at 155, I think Max would need to bulk up for a bit and take another match at the weight class before just going straight from 145 to 155. That was part of the issue. He looked small in there. I agree with Dana White on that comment that he looked small compared to Poirier. But it's, in a very intriguing matchup, especially because of all the skills that Holloway has with submissions that are, people forget that he's got a submission game. He almost submitted Poirier in the rematch. Time ran out, but he had him in that, I forget if it was a Darce or a guillotine. It was one of those things where you go back and watch Holloway's older fights. He's so good everywhere. So I would love to see this rematch happen, whether it's Holloway moving up to 155, whether it's somehow McGregor going back down to 145, although I think we could all agree that's probably not happening. But it just makes sense for it to happen. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button to get notifications whenever we drop new videos like this. And let us know in the comments if you want to see this fight, which I can't imagine you don't want to. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to see this rematch, please
get out of here.
Yeah,
get out of here.
But let us know how you think it would go and who you think would win. That being said, we'll wrap it up in terms of, let's say 257, McGregor wins, and then Holloway ends up reclaiming the belt against Volkanovski or Ortega somewhere down the line. Could you see Holloway moving up and challenging for the belt if McGregor may have it down the line too? If let's say Khabib retires too, let's throw that whole scenario out there. Do you guys think Holloway will move up to fight McGregor?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think that probably the only way that this fight happens is if both guys are champions or Max is lightweight champion. I think that's probably more realistic because I still very much believe that McGregor is never, ever, 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 ever going to defend any title he ever owns. So Holloway will need to go up, win the lightweight title, and then Conor will vacate it if he becomes champion and be like, oh, I want to go get it again. That's how it happens.
Bold call. Matt,
is
do you
it?
feel the same way? I think it is. Matt, do you think it's a bold call? Do you think it'd be if Max is lightweight champion?
Yeah, somebody's got to have the belt, and I think it's got to be Max. If he wins it at 45, and like you said, if Conor somehow ends up with the belt, I could see that fight happening. That's just a big fight that would sell really well. The UFC would want it, obviously for pay-per-view buys reasons, but I think I don't see any other scenario where it would happen. Like let's say if Conor were to lose and Max moves up, I don't think that would be a match that they would make. I would think they would still go with Nate Diaz first. And then if Conor was to lose that fight, I don't see Conor taking a fight against Max Holloway after that. So, it's just, I think 100% contingent on both of them or one of them having a belt at the right time.
Yeah, I would mostly agree with that. I think, I think it's a scenario where if McGregor gets the belt at lightweight, you're looking at, a fight against Gaethje, probably Oliveira, Ferguson, those guys, right? But beyond that, it could the well could run dry in terms of appealing big matchups in the UFC eyes, right? Not that guys wouldn't be deserving. If Chandler or Hooker or Felder, any of those guys, work their way up, I'm sure there would be worthy contenders. But if you've got Conor McGregor there, the UFC wants the biggest fight possible. And Holloway moving up to fight him for the belt makes all sorts of sense in the world. I think the only other scenario you see it happening where one of them not having a belt is if they both lose and are kind of in this limbo where if, I agree that they'd rather do Nate versus Conor first, but if they can't get that deal done because Nate Diaz is Nate Diaz and negotiates the way he does, then you've got a situation where I'm sure it would do very well to have Max, if he can't get another crack at the 145 belt, move up to lightweight and do that rematch. That's a big fight. That's something both of them could get behind, and it's something that would sell. So I think those are your only two scenarios. I'm with you there. But yeah, either way, I think we're all in agreement here. We need to see this fight. So yeah, let's hope that they get it done.